Hello and welcome to the Underhive. We are back with some more How to Command the Death Guard. In this series, we're going to take a look at every aspect of the Death Guard, so whether you're looking to get more out of your army, or you're thinking of joining Nurgle's feculent festivities, then there's something here for you. In this episode, we're continuing our thought experiment into how to glow up these 7 plague companies. Whether that be to bring them more in line with each other and make all 7 reasonable picks, or whether that be because Votann coming out look very powerful, and if they're not nerfed in some way, that being the new power level baseline would mean that other factions would need to have a glow up, and these would just be some of my thoughts onto how that could be done. So with this being the 4th episode of this mini-series, we are on the 4th Plague Company, so let's dive in and take a look at the Wretched. Now, the Wretched are one of the weaker plague companies, in my opinion, despite the effects they have not being bad at all. It's just that they're not powerful enough to actually warrant taking. So I think they could definitely do with a bit of a glow up. If, again, we're talking about the new state of power level being the level of the Votann, or just really to make them all a reasonable pick. So, and again, I will say, I don't think Death Guard are in a bad place. That's not the point of this, just a thought experiment. So, the Sevenfold Blessing. This is a requisition stratagem, so you pay for it at the beginning of the game, and one of your Wretched Psychers, they will know an additional spell, and they will be able to re-roll 1 psychic test per phase, per psychic phase. So I think that's a pretty reasonable buff to have. I don't think it's that weak, but it's just not as strong as having some of the other flexible stratagems, and alongside the Relic and Warlord trait, just doesn't really do enough. I think the only thing that would need to happen with this to make it actually an appealing pick for me is that Psyker can cast a psychic action and it count as one of their casts. So if they have got the potential to cast more than one spell, like a Malignant Plague caster would, they would still be able to cast a spell after attempting the psychic action. I think that would give you the flexibility to take the psychic actions more liberally, and it would give you a reason to pick the Wretched Plague Company if that's your intention. So overall, I don't think it would make it ridiculously overpowered, but it would mean that running a Plague caster in the Wretched, Plague Company would be a reasonable direction to go if you're pretty confident you're going to want that psychic secondary as one of your 3 for the game. As far as the Warlord trait, the Eater Plague, while an enemy unit is within contagion range of this unit, each time an attack is made by a friendly Wretched model against that enemy unit, an unmodified unmodified hit of a 6 automatically wounds the target. Now, outside of the Votann, the wound roll isn't really our issue. We can re-roll wound rolls pretty consistently. We generally get a good side of the wound rolls because of the contagion effect. I don't think auto-wounding is something that the Death Guard are ever going to really look for and really, really want. Particularly now that the Plague Marines are going to be taking pretty good melee weapons most of the time rather than just Plague Knives. There isn't really any model that I see that just really wants to auto-wound something. So for me, I think if we change that up to 6s to hit or exploded, that would be nice. There's not much 6s explode in the Codex whatsoever. You've got pretty much just a deadly pathogen for it and the Talisman. So having another means to do that, I would say it shouldn't stack with the Talisman. So it should just be you get one or the other. That might be a reason to sort of knock the Talisman out of the list, but I don't think it would be. The Talisman can then be used more consistently to, sit at the back with a Contemptor or whatever it might be to give the buff to the unit at long range, and then you can have your exploding 6s in the middle there from the Warlord. I think that would be reasonable. Obviously, Death Guard are a predominantly melee army. They don't have bad melee output, but I think this would give you a reason to pick the Wretched and means that the Sevenfold Blessing and the Relic, the Demon's Favour, don't actually need to be that much more powerful than anything else because the Warlord trait is good. So for me, I would change it that way. I would make it 6s to hit explode rather than 6s to hit automatically wound, because we don't mind the wound roll, particularly if we're not into Votann or not into Iron Warriors. The Demon's Favour is the relic, so it changes the Malignant Plague caster ability to each time you cast on a 7 or more, they suffer D3 mortal wounds. Now, I think if we did make the Eater Plague explode in 6s, I don't think you necessarily need to touch the relic. But just given that there are NIDs out there that deal flat 3 with a similar effect, I don't think it's unreasonable to pay a CP and have it be flat 3. You're not always going to get the 7 to cast or more, so you're not always going to get the flat 3, and it has got to be the closest unit within 12 still, so you're not getting to freely pick who that goes on. So again, I think that might be a little bit much, a little bit too strong for the Death Guard, but if I was going to glow it up at all, I would just go straight forward and make that flat 3 rather than D3. That would certainly be enough to make me want to take the Wretched Plague Company for the relic, and the upgrade to the Warlord trait that I've suggested would be enough to make me want it for the Warlord. I think being able to cast the psychic power, the psychic action as well as a psychic power would be a good reason to spend that extra CP, even though you're not going to have any sort of flexible stratagem for 1 CP during the game like the second or third Plague Company have. And you've got no additional damage strat like, say, the full rerolls for Poxwalkers from the Harbingers. So that is still a cost, in my opinion, not having a flexible stratagem you can use in the battle, but rather paying it up front. And I think only something like being able to do a psychic action and not ruin the rest of your casts is enough to make that requisition worthwhile. Anything else, I feel that you might still go with the Wretched, but you probably won't take that. But if you feel otherwise, if you think the Wretched are good, if you've ever used them before to great effect, I would love to hear from you. And if there's anything else you would suggest to change about them if we were glowing them up, I would be delighted to hear from you about that as well. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time in the Underhive.